Hello there, friends, and welcome once again to another episode of the 360 Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Braheem, and I'm going to gush a little bit over my guest today. I am a huge fan of this young man. His name is Justice Roberts. I've known Justice for only a year. He was in my Leadership 360 signature program. I become very close with all of my clients, and I just think so highly of him as a human being and as a businessman. Justice is 31 years old. He's been in the mortgage business since he was 19 years old, so 12 years. And he has most recently made the transition to being a broker about 6 months ago. And he has 4 children. So he has his hands full and a lovely wife. And he is a devoted father and husband and a terrific loan originator. What you should expect to hear in our conversation today is some very interesting business-related content around unique products that he's selling and having great success with. But beyond that, we're going to go deep. And we could go deeper, I could guarantee you. I mean, we're going to only scratch the surface. Maybe I'll have him back for another episode where we'll go even deeper than we do on this one. But he is very capable of really covering of a wide landscape of content, especially as it relates to the personal development realm, which is what I love to talk with him about so much. I think you're going to be wildly impressed with this young man. He's wise beyond his years. And in fact, in the Leadership 360 signature program, we nicknamed him the Little Buddha because of how wise he is. Before I get to the conversation with Justice, I just want to say thank you so very much for being a subscriber. If you are, if you're not, it would be really great if you could subscribe. Forward this episode, if you enjoy it, along to anyone that you find would benefit from it. Give us a comment on YouTube or likes on your favorite podcast channel if you like the episode. We're always interested in hearing your feedback and always interested in bringing valuable contributors to this platform, such as Justice Roberts. And without further ado, friends, a conversation with my buddy, Justice Roberts, on the 360 Experience Podcast. Well, I have been looking forward to having this conversation with you for quite some time, bro. It's good to see you, man.
It's great to see you too. Looking forward to having a conversation with you today.
Yeah. One of the things that I want to, we're gonna definitely get into a lot of personal stuff. I think there are certain guests that I have on this show that's their wheelhouse, that's their sweet spot based upon my experience with them. And you're one of those people. And everybody buckle up and be ready, because you're going to hear some really beautiful things that have transpired in this man's life over the last year and the amazing work that he's been doing. We're going to start with business. But before we do, I just want to say, I know that this may sound like an old man statement, but I am an old man compared to you. I mean, there's 26 years that separate us. You're only 31 years old. You have 4 children. You're a successful business person. I'm just really proud of you. Like, it's been about a year, a little more than a year that we first met. And I knew right away, like in the very first conversation, I'm like, this guy is perfect for the Leadership 360 family and the signature program. He's like so ready for it. And you took your time, and to be honest with you, for quite some time, didn't think that you were going to move forward. And I'm so glad that you did, because for me, selfishly, as a teacher, it's just imperative for me to have students that implement. And you've done such a wonderful job of implementing. And I'm just really proud of you. And I'm really happy for you for the success that you've had in the last year.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's been quite a journey the last year and a bit since we first started talking. And it means a lot knowing that you're proud of the work that's been put in, for sure. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to everybody in the master's program getting to know you. Like there's certain people that I look at when we're in the 12-month signature program and I go, oh, that person's going to, like, the master's group is going to love this person. And you're one of those people. They're going to really enjoy getting to know you, and you're going to enjoy getting to know them real soon. So let's start with business. How long have you been in the business for? And just give us a quick, just a 50,000 foot, how long you've been in business for, and where you currently stand as it relates to your role, your production, et cetera.
Yeah. I got in the business in 2012. So I think that's, about 12-ish years, depending on the month that we start counting from. I got in as a loan officer assistant, did that for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then started originating from there. And my current role right now is, I'm in full-time originating, and have two loan partners that work underneath me. In previous years, I've grown our team and our production. I had 10 people as a part of my production team. So we're a little scaled back at the moment, but sitting in the wheelhouse of just originating. And that's my primary role and what I love getting to do every day.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, noteworthy that you started when you were 19 years old. I mean, that's pretty much, this is the only job you've ever had. And you scaled up like everybody did, and you were in a leadership type capacity and wanting to recruit and bring people aboard and pondering how to grow that. And then you realized, no, maybe I'll just be a damn good loan officer. And I think it's when you focused on that things really started to take off. Now, that also simultaneously coincided with you transitioning from being a mortgage banker to a mortgage broker, which I want to talk about what your experience has been in doing that over the last, what has it been, like about 8 months now? Not even that, right? 7 months that you've been a mortgage broker for?
6.5, 7 months. Yeah.
Okay. And tell us, I think this is noteworthy. I don't want to skip over this. What has your production been like in 2024 year to date?
2024 year to date, I'm on track for 60 million. So we've closed a little over 30 million so far this year.
Those are some fantastic numbers for the year that we're immersed in when there's really no refis. I want to talk a little bit about product too, because I know that the product has had the ability to sell non-QM has had a big impact on your success this year. But let's talk about the decision to go from being someone who's an employee in a mortgage banking operation for the entirety of your career to deciding, you know what, I'm going to go off on my own and I'm going to be a mortgage broker. Tell us why you decided to do that. What were some of the fears that you had to overcome? What are some of the things that you would, suggest to someone who was pondering that kind of a move? Go deep on that for us, would you?
Yeah, I would say, it was a long process. I've thought about it more recently in the last couple of months as I've been looking back at previous 6-8 months and going, hey, what have I been through and what have I actually gone through? But really, it started with just kind of this dissatisfaction and feeling like the season was over in retail, but really not knowing what was next, and always kind of thinking there's this other side of the business. There's this other side, but based off of my retail experience, other management and things like that had always discouraged that idea. And rightly so. If I was in their position, probably be doing, similar things, or may have that type of belief system around, the value system of the retail model. And, I really am grateful. I'll say that for my time in retail. I feel like I learned a ton, but felt like there's something more. And also due to some of my origination style, I was like, I feel like I'm going to be really successful in this type of model. But some of the biggest fears that I had was like lack of control, lack of understanding what things look like from a bank, each individual bank. How do I choose which bank? What if I choose the best priced bank, but then it ends up falling apart, in their fulfillment process or closing, and I look like I don't know what I'm talking about, and feeling like I have a strong reputation with the people that I work with on a regular basis. And even internally, this reputation that I have with myself on my ability to deliver. And I think I got to the point where I asked myself this question, and I've done this in other parts of life, where I'm like, there's been other people who have been successful and figured out how to do it. The first time I remember having this type of thought was when I was learning how to drive a manual transmission. And I remember being kind of scared and a little bit nervous. And I had this thought. I was like, there are people much less coordinated than you that have figured out how to drive a manual transmission down the road. And so, not that to say that I'm incredibly competent when it comes to the mortgage business, or to give myself that compliment, even though I feel like I know my way around mortgages pretty well. But I was like, I can figure this out. And if someone else can figure this out, then the worst case that happens is I try it out and, I fall on my face, and, I'll pick myself back up and we'll figure it out again. But just the unknown, I think, was my biggest fear. And to kind of confront that, I had, multiple other friends and people that I talk with that kind of served as a little bit of a mentor, and just like, hey, you get over, you don't know what you need, you don't know what you don't know, then reach out and ask questions. Processing was a concern that I had, and what that would look like. So I'm working with contract processors now, which has been a new thing to learn. And so, yeah, those have been things that we've gone through the process of learning.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to be careful so as to not offend any of my mortgage banking friends, because I have many of them. But as you know, I've been a mortgage broker, was a mortgage broker my entire career. And I think that there are two different models, for sure. I think that there are great benefits to both. You have an entrepreneurial spirit in you. And I actually think that my observation of having worked so closely with you is when you confronted that fear of all of the unknowns, of losing the control and having direct access to an underwriter and all of these types of things, and putting your reputation in the hands of entities that you were brokering to, once you confronted that fear and leaned in, it seems as if it unleashed an entrepreneurial spirit in you, that where you got excited about creating something cool and new. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. I think getting on the other side and trying it a few times, there was definitely something that opened up. I was like, oh, it's not like what it is that I feared. And, other things that, I think having more of an employee mindset than I actually realized that I had carried around with me. Things as simple as like needing to get computers and things like that, and wanted to have all of these structures set in place, and I have to have my entity set up, and I have to have my bank account so that I can write off everything correctly. And I had a conversation with a friend. He was like, hey, you're an entrepreneur now, so start acting like it. Like, you can go to Best Buy today and buy computers. You can go, execute and start moving things forward. Like, you can get stuff done. And it opened my mind up to just the reality of like, this is who it is that I've been all along, but now I have permission to kind of fully lean into that. So that's been really fun and fulfilling.
So one of the things that, when we have healthy dialogue and debate around the topic within the L360 family around broker versus banker, one of the things that I hear a lot, and I happen to agree with, is, hey, when things start cranking and getting really busy, you're going to have a much more difficult time as a broker, because you're a number and you're going to have to be put in the queue at UWM or Quicken or, Kind Lending or wherever you're brokering your loans to, and you're just going to have to wait. And you're not going to have any say-so or any pull. Whereas when you're a mortgage banker, you're going to be able to facilitate loans in that robust market much more expediently. And my belief is there is some truth to that statement. However, because I know that so many people that are listening to this are curious about this, and I want to hear your feedback on this, but it's also some advice to you. Okay, and I think I've given this to you already. It's going to be very imperative for you, and I would start doing it now, that you start to send your business to as few lenders as possible. The natural tendency when you're a broker is to dole it out to a whole bunch of different entities, because that's what you have access to. But that's where you are just a number. They don't really know who you are. They get a deal a month from you, or a deal every other month. When I was a broker, I had my go-to lenders, and I was absolutely huge business for them. And when things got busy, I was able to go to them and go, look, I want my own underwriter. Like, I want one person. I don't want my team dealing with 11 people. I want one person. And they would give it to me because I'm funding 15, 16, 17 loans a month with them. You have any thoughts on that? Because I know that might be a fear that's in the back of your mind about, oh, what happens when it gets busy and I don't have that control?
Yeah, I remember when you had shared this idea a few months back with me, as we were talking about this, and have started to implement that, especially with my more traditional finance. I have a good amount of business that we do that's non-QM, and I've had to be a little bit more picky choosy with different lenders as far as that's concerned. But anything related to conventional, FHA, VA, those types of products, I have like a core 3 or 4 lenders that's like it's going to one of those 4 pretty much at the end of the day. And that has already, from my team perspective, as we're, looking at our file flow and looking at, how our tempo and momentum works, everything flows faster and smoother when they're familiar with the system. They know how to upload, they know how to lock, they know who's ordering the appraisal, because time is really what's most important when refis hit. Like, you have a certain amount of time that consumers are out looking, and you need to be able to lock them in and move on, because the difference between people that do really, really well, and I remember this from when we hit a refi boom before, it's anybody can make $1 million in this business. The question is, how long does it take you to make $1 million? Can you do that in the scope of, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, or 5 years? And so how do you condense time to be able to have your systems be really robust and smooth? And that's everything from the fulfillment side of the lender, but also internally as far as our team goes.
Yeah, that's a great point that I always forget, that I want to really rubber stamp, which is also, if you're brokering to 25 different lenders, that's 25 different platforms that your processors have to know and know the ins and outs of. Conversely, you can get yourself into a situation where you put all your eggs in one basket. That's probably not the best thing either, because if for some reason that lender just, is struggling to bring aboard the proper resources to facilitate loans, then you're gonna be, you're gonna have a backup. I mean, you always want to have a few backups. I don't know if I ever told you this story. I probably did. But I tell you a story about the year was late 2000, and I knew that rates were going to start coming down. I just could feel it. Like, they were high. They were at 8 3/4. I'm like, they're going to get better, and when they do, we're going to need to have, like, speed is going to be the key. So I called up my 5 go-to lenders. It was Countrywide. Did I tell you this story before?
I think so, yeah.
I called up Countrywide, Citibank, Washington Mutual. Most of these companies aren't even in business anymore. Provident Funding, they're still around. And
yep.
Can't remember the 5th off the top of my head. Anyways, I called all their account reps and I said, I'd like to have a meeting with you in my office at, this day and this time. Unbeknownst to them, the other 4 were going to be there all at the same time. And I had chairs in my office, and they all sat down. They're all competing with each other. And I just looked at them and said, look, gave them my business plan. Took about 15 minutes. Here's why I think we're going to do 40 to 50 loans a month, if not more, every month next year. And I'm going to give all of my business to 3 of you. But here's what I want. I want 24-hour turn time in underwriting. I want 24-hour turn time in docs. I want 24-hour in funding. Blah, 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 blah. I give them all the thing. I want the same underwriter. I want access to that person. I can call them directly to talk to them about my files. Whoever can go get that rubber stamp by their boss and come back to me, you're going to get the business. And 3 of them did. And it was Countrywide, it was Citibank, and it was Washington Mutual. And they got, that year I did in 2001. The next year was the first year that I did over 500 loans. And they got like probably 90% of the business. But that's a part of being a good businessman. Like, you got to go out and negotiate your deals with your service providers that affect your service platform and your reputation. So you may want to consider doing something like that. Let's go back to the non-QM thing. I want to talk a little bit about that, because you've flourished this year in selling that product. Tell us a little bit about, like, how it differs, the importance of it, how you're marketing it, how are you finding, how are you using it strategically to your advantage?
Man, I think it started specifically when going through 2020, and we had some marketing around it when I was working with a buddy of mine who had an AI company that was generating these mortgage leads that needed this as a solution. I honestly, when I first started just a few years ago, like I guess it was 4 years ago, I had no idea how to sell the product. And looking back at it now, it was all of those self-employed individuals who wrote off everything on their taxes, and they looked like they made 50 grand when they really made 300 grand for the year, or something along those lines. And so understanding the product and then understanding how to sell it was definitely two different things. I know that I did a very poor job early on, and I've tried to communicate the value of this type of product and didn't have a good idea as far as how to articulate it. Now I think it's way more matter of fact because I have conviction behind why this is such a great solution for so many self-employed individuals or investors. And that's kind of what it's gone into a little bit more. But I could see in 2020, I was like, this is going to be big. This is going to be something that is a big part of the industry. And all I know is all my retail friends, nobody understands these products. And so I'm going to kind of stand out and actually put some work in instead of just doing the gravy refis that were coming through. And I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. And this is going to be cool to see when things turn. These are individuals that actually have money and they have the ability to get financed. And a lot of people turn these people away. And so getting into it, I would say primarily I do a lot on the non-QM side. It's primarily bank statement, though I've done quite a few DSCRs and debt service coverage ratio, if you're not familiar with what that is. And it's been huge because it's opened up a lot of different real estate investors, which in this market and in this time, there are still quite a few people who have money. Even in a difficult economic environment, there are businesses that are still, whether they had a bunch of cash that they got in 2020, 2021, or their businesses are still successful and they're looking for an opportunity to leverage the current market to go out and acquire other properties. And so I've had multiple clients this year that have bought 3, 4, 5 homes each with either a bank statement or a DSCR product. And so kind of where I've pivoted one way or another, with one of my clients in the Seattle market, when they're buying investment properties, DSCR doesn't work. Getting it to debt service is really, really tough. But they're also acquiring properties in Alaska where rents versus the purchase price works super, super well. And we can get it to debt service all day long. And so it's kind of pivoting back and forth, but it's been a great solution for a lot of our clients. And even though interest rates are a little higher, if you can make the numbers work and they can see the value in acquiring the asset, once that clicked for them, it's been like, how many properties can we buy?
So can you give me a fairly tight script on, if I'm the borrower, I'm coming to you, want to buy a home, my tax returns don't show the type of income that would be necessary to qualify. I hear what you said there, which is a very important footnote for everyone to take note of, is that you had to overcome the mental hurdle of selling a higher rate. And that's not to be underestimated. It's like if you're used to selling the, full documentation, vanilla, A+ paper, 30-year fix, and all of a sudden you run into somebody who does not qualify for that, and you're looking at, 0.75% higher the rate or percent higher the rate or whatever it is. If you don't have conviction and confidence in that product, it becomes incredibly difficult to sell. So I think it'd be really valuable if you could just give me whatever script you have here of how you would pivot. Let's assume that I came and I tried to qualify. My tax returns don't show enough income. What would you then say to me to get me to be open to an alternative product with a higher rate?
Yeah, I think it starts in the fact-finding part of our call as I'm starting to get to know them and asking them questions about their business. And usually I'm getting an idea as I'm having a conversation with them, how well they either know what their finances look like or where I'm going to go as far as the product goes. And before I'm going to maybe make hey, this is what it is, you're not going to qualify for what you want with a full doc loan, we need to pivot to this alternative solution. It is a little educational. And so I think having the conversation with them, something along the lines of like, hey, what I'd love to do if you're open to this is kind of take a look at which program or which product makes the most sense for your situation. So if you wouldn't be opposed to it, could I request the last couple of years of your tax returns, both both your personal and your corporate returns, as well as request the last 12 months of your bank statement so we can kind of explore and see which option makes the most sense. And then based off of that, we'll be able to go over with you, what the details look like. So the scripting is something along those lines as from the outset. And then when I'm selling the loan, giving them the feedback on option A versus option B, here's what we can do. And every once in a while, there's a little bit of pushback on something along those lines. But when you're comparing what you're getting with option one and option two, and actually showing them that they can have the solution of what they want with the bank statement product, then it's just made it so that there's much less of a rate conversation if they can rationalize with the payment and what rent's going to be or what they can actually get into for their family. It makes it a much easier transition.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you're starting at the beginning by asking for the documentation that would allow for you to evaluate both options before you're not presenting them at the beginning. Hey, I think that, you may want to consider this other program that has 0.75% higher in the interest rate. You're just asking for documentation up front. Then after you get the documentation, you're going back to them and you're either presenting both options to them or perhaps only one option, which is the bank statement only option, and then explaining to them at that point in time why this option is the only option that would work based upon what their full documentation yielded. But what I'm also hearing, and I think that this is the important point, is that you're saying, hey, listen, you're focusing them on the fact that this is still a viable solution and still gets them what they want. You're taking the emphasis off of the increased interest rate, which is why I think most loan originators get tripped up, is they're nervous about selling, 8% when they shouldn't be selling the rate. They should be selling a solution that still meets the needs of the customer. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And certainly there's more educated customers that come at times where they know that they don't qualify for a traditional loan and we jump right in. They go, hey, what's the interest rate? And that type of conversation is a little bit different where it's like, hey, interest rates are going to be 1 to 1.5% higher. But think about like the difference between you not qualifying and you being able to accomplish what it is that you're trying to. I really think it's worthwhile for us to at least explore and see what options I can come up with for you. Again, pivoting back to the solution so that that's what's being sold and at the forefront of their mind than the interest rate specifically.
Okay, so you've identified a niche, depends who you're talking to. Some people call it a niche. Okay, we'll call it a niche just because it sounds fancier. So you've identified a niche that you're focused on. And what I'm curious about is, where are your referral sources coming from? And tell us where you get a lot of your business. Do you have a lot of realtor business? Do you have alternative referral sources that are lined up with this niche, et cetera?
I would say my business pretty much is like 50% database, 50% new realtor referrals is kind of where a majority of our business. And we do a little bit of online advertising. I'm in the process of kind of launching a new self-employed campaign because I want to lean into it since I love this type of loan so strongly. I'm trying to do as much of that business as we can. And I still think that there's a huge need, but primarily right now, a business that we're closing, it's, real estate, 50%. And then my database, whether it's current client referrals, past client referrals, or repeat customers, is where the business is coming from.
So have you thought about referral sources that most originators would never think about because you have this product, such as local bank loan originators? As an example, or local builder accounts where you're saying, look, if you have a buyer that your in-house financing representative cannot get a loan for them because they don't qualify and show enough income, you need to get them over to me because there's a really good chance that I can still make it work. Have you thought about going to people that do loans and asking them for the stuff that they don't know how to do? Credit unions is another example.
Yeah, it's been things that I've explored in my thought processes, but not actually leveraging and putting together a significant plan. A couple of things that I've dipped my toes into is also reached out to CPAs. And I found that that's kind of a cool, interesting conversation because I've approached them from a standpoint of like, hey, I have a no tax return loan. So if you have clients that you hear that they're trying to purchase a house and they're not able to get qualified, this can be a great solution for them. And I've seen a few referrals come from some CPAs in that way because it's something that differentiates. And if someone's really concerned about how much they're writing off and the CPA and the client are going back and forth on that, knowing that there's this alternative solution, I think creates a unique opportunity for a referral.
I think a great guy for you to talk with, and you're going to meet him real soon on retreat, is Josh Metal. Josh identified a long time ago a niche in the market, which was doctor loans, right? And he put together an entire marketing strategy and branded himself as the doctor loan originator because he found that would really help doctors that have these heavy student loan debt and all that kind of stuff and are starting their own practice and are taking on, a lot of expenses for equipment, medical equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And he, just really penetrated that market fully. And you're doing something very similar. I think one of the things that you want to be careful of, though, when you are developing a brand in a specific niche is you want to make sure that you're also reminding everybody that you do the other kinds of loans too. So like you're going to these CPAs and you're branding yourself as able to do loans for their clients who aggressively write off their expenses against their income. And oh, by the way, don't think that that's the only kind of loan I can do. Make sure that you remind them that you could do all the loans.
Right. I think I've made that mistake far too often where you sell a product so aggressively that, they're like, oh, I didn't know you do VA loans. You're like, I love VA loans. Make sure you send me your veterans.
A very big one earlier this year, I believe, didn't you?
Yeah. From the non-QM or VA?
Did you do a big VA loan this year or am I thinking of the non-QM?
No, the non-QM is the big one you're thinking of for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Because on these non-QM loans, like how many basis points are you able to make on them? Like 4, something like that.
I mean, the most that I've made from a margin perspective is about 410 basis points. Though I would say very consistently 225 to 275 in that range. And my average loan amount with those loans, it's 750 to 3 million. And so there's definitely in this market to hold margin at that level is really cool.
I think that the important thing, I was talking to Caleb LeGrand. I think you've talked to Caleb before, right?
One time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you're going to enjoy meeting him too. And on the next retreat, Caleb's a machine. And he said something to me a couple of weeks ago. We were talking and he said, the problem in this market is that everybody's selling the exact same product. There's only one product. Everybody's selling the vanilla 30-year fixed. Nobody's even selling a 15-year fixed. Certainly no hybrid arms, et cetera, et cetera. I think you've actually unlocked the code on that because the problem with everybody selling the exact same product is there's no different. It's very difficult to differentiate yourself at point of sale other than the actual rate and fees, right? Yes, you can bond, you can develop a relationship, but at the end of the day, if people are rate shopping, especially when you have affordability issues, you're really being compared to everybody else because everyone's selling the same thing. But what you're doing is you're selling something very different. And it's almost like, everybody else, it's almost like you got like 500 people swimming in a backyard swimming pool and elbowing each other. And you're like over here in the next backyard by yourself, just kind of like doing the backstroke in the pool with that and doing just fine. Right. So
totally.
It's really noteworthy. Okay. So let's transition a little bit towards some personal stuff. One of the things that I really admire about you is your strong intentionality in being a great father and a great husband. And you worked a lot on that over the course of the last year in the L360 Signature Program. Tell me a little bit about what you learned over the last year about yourself and some of the things that you had intentionality behind as a part of your business and life plan that you've implemented relating to the connection with your family.
Yeah, I think the biggest aha that I learned about myself was I've spent far too long not being my own best friend. And it was interesting kind of approaching the aspect of my life as a part of my business goal. And my first instinct was like, I really want to show up different for my wife or for my kids, and just feeling like there was this constant push to go like, I just got to do better. I got to be a better husband. I got to show up, which means I got to be really hard on the time that I'm leaving work and being present. And what very much surprised me is that the key to unlock that had way more to do with me being my own best friend and being my best advocate to spend time with myself, which gave me the ability to actually show up in a different way for my family than I had been doing previously. I think in previous years and everything, it was way more about the self-effort of what I can do to just do better, and going like, hey, honey, I'm showing up, I'm being here, like I am with the family, I am here, and not feeling like that was seen or recognized. And part of that was I really wasn't being as present as I thought that I was being. And I honestly was beating myself up way too much. And as soon as I started realizing that I can actually just enjoy and become the human being and the best version of myself by actually enjoying my life a little bit more, that gave permission to everyone around me, my family, most importantly, to actually receive that and realize that they could step into that as well. And it also gave me more capacity to just show up and be more present for them.
So let's play with that a little bit more deeply. So what I heard you say is that, and it's almost antithetical, if you will, and it creates almost like a confusing scenario, is that, okay, I'm not present enough. I'm not spending as much time with my family as I'd like to. But the solution was to spend more time with you. Whereas most people would say, look, I don't have time to spend with myself. I don't even have enough time to spend with my family. And now we're caught in this loop of, I don't have enough. Okay. And now all of a sudden you've said, okay, I'm going to look at it from a place of abundance, which is, I'm going to spend more time with me. There's time there. There's room in there for me to spend with me. And then how somehow magically that opened up the way that you felt about the amount of time that you were spending with your family. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. I would say I didn't realize that I was searching for the term as I was sharing before, but like there was a strong sense of abandonment that I had become very familiar with, and to let that go and be like, I actually want to spend time doing what I enjoy doing. One of the things that, was a part of my business and life plan was to spend time 3 days a week playing the guitar for 15 minutes a day. And to even get to the point of actually, when I asked myself, what do I enjoy doing? Because I felt like that's what I needed to do. It was so hard for me. I didn't even know what I enjoyed doing. And I was like, well, I think I enjoy playing golf. Now I'm terrible at golf. That's not going to be rewarding. I love playing music. I love guitar. And it was like this process. And I was like, oh, of course it makes sense. And then the more that I did that, I was blown away by how much that opened up for me and for our family, and just more connection. It was really interesting.
So sorry, I want to cut in just to ask. So, okay, so you identified what you love to do, and it's very clear that you love to do it. And I remember the first time I saw you play guitar was down here in Costa Rica. And I just saw you light up. You just had this big smile on your face. And I was like, oh yeah, wow, he's in it right there. Like he's in his sweet spot, when he's doing this. So you started to commit to 15 minutes, 3 days a week to playing the guitar. Why do you think it was that from playing the guitar for 15 minutes or more, 3 days a week, that it created more connection for you and your family?
I think what surprised me the most is I saw my family respond to the energy that I was living from. And like, it wasn't 15 minutes, Tim. It was like 30 minutes every time I'd pick it up and play, because my kids would come around and they'd like turn their head and, oh, dad's playing the guitar and now he's singing a little something. Can I sing a song that they know or that they enjoy, whether it's, row, row, row your boat, or, whatever it is, like, dad, sing this song, play this song. And the life that was like came through into our home was really, really special. And my wife noticed it. She would jump in and I don't know, like, I think it was the energy that they responded to. And it was like this permission that because I've given myself the ability to love myself and to do something that I enjoy doing, it's the same permission for them to show up and actually enjoy the life that they have. What is it that they enjoy doing? And when you have this open environment, I don't know, that's just where beautiful stuff starts to happen when people start doing things that they enjoy and become, who they're made to be, I guess.
Well, I've got a great book for you to read. I'm halfway through it. Matt Bassett, who is in the master's program, spoke about it on retreat in La Jolla back in April. It's called Letting Go, and the author's name is Hawkins. The last name is Hawkins. David Hawkins. I read a book of his many years ago when I was in school called Power versus Force, which is an amazing book as well. But it's about energy, and it's about what are the energies, and our energies that we vibrate under are based upon the thoughts that we have in our head. So what energies are, or what thoughts correspond to energetic frequencies that make us attractive versus the ones that repel people. So what you're describing here so beautifully is that you first had to work on your energy. Your energy was low vibration because you were beating yourself up and critiquing yourself for not being present enough and not spending enough time with, which was then causing you to experience, say, your wife sharing with you, hey, we need you to be more present with us. And you're like, hey, I'm doing everything that I can here, and I'm working my rear end off, et cetera. It started with you doing things for you that made you vibrate at a higher frequency, which drew them in. They just wanted to be closer to you. If you look at, like, I've done a lot of studying, as you know, over the years on the subject matter of like gurus in India and places like that. And there's like a common theme when I hear these amazing stories about these gurus. It's they'll say the devotees of these gurus will say, when I was around him or when I was around her, all I could tell you was just being in their presence, I felt nothing but pure love and bliss. Well, what they're describing, and it was like, not that they said anything to me, just being close to them, I automatically transformed into a blissful and loving state. Why? Because they were so blissed out and in such a high vibrational frequency of love that you get into their force field and you then take it on and you transform into that same energy. That's what I'm hearing you describe. You're having fun. You're playing the guitar. Their kids are like, oh, dad's playing the guitar. They want to be close to you because you're safe. You're vibrating high. You're having a good time. And it's creating the connection that you were always wanting to have, but you didn't get there. And thank you for this, by the way, because this is really good for me to hear, because it's something that I want to work more on. I'm putting the puzzle pieces together of, like, the more that you work on loving yourself, the more you work on raising your vibration because you're doing things that you enjoy, the more that you create connection of the people that you love in your life.
That's so special. I love how you tied the bow there. That's really pretty.
So back to relationships. You also you've done some really nice work around getting home at a specific period of time and connecting with your family. So tell us a little bit about that, because I'm pretty familiar with what was going on there.
Yeah, we made the commitment to Wednesdays and Fridays.
It's Wednesday. Okay. So
it is Wednesday. Yeah. Wednesdays and Fridays, leaving the office and being home by 6. And I think that it was just a lot easier than I thought that it was going to be there. I wasn't 100%, but it was actually the expectation that I set and made the commitment to my wife. And so not only to you, as you were a great reminder at different times that, hey, it's Wednesday or it's Friday, but my wife, most importantly, hey, it's Wednesday, dinner's at, we're having dinner at 6 or 6:15, make sure that you're here. And are you still coming at 6? And there was that anticipation of that. And so I think it was a lot easier than I thought. it would be to kind of like let go of what was happening at work and realize that the most important thing that I was stepping into is why I work so hard every day. It's why I show up, is so that I can spend time with my family, and being able to carve out 2 days a week to where I could do that. I found like it was just more doable than I thought.
Well, I applaud you for not only having the intention to do it, but for executing on it. What would you say? How would you say that has impacted your relationship with your wife and kids by getting home 2 days a week at 6 o'clock?
You know what? It's hard to say just that specifically, because it's that paired with like when I'm coming home, those would be the nights that I play my guitar and everything else. So what was it? Was it showing up earlier, or was it when I showed up, who it is that I showed up as? You know, maybe it's difficult to decipher or to determine what made the greatest impact, but it's that time, that anticipation that was there. It was like almost like they're ready. Hey, my kids are ready. My wife is ready. Hey, my husband's coming home. Hey, daddy's coming home, and it's going to be at this specific time. It's earlier than usual. We're going to either eat dinner, or we're going to make sure that all of our stuff and chores are done so that we can do something fun in the evening. We like to play games or read books or go outside and throw the football around with my boys. So it's like any activities that could be planned, knowing that I was coming home sooner, just created more time for connection. And
I would imagine it impacted the way you feel about yourself too, right?
It's interesting you say that. I hadn't considered that before, but absolutely. The way that I feel about myself is like, it's a different level of pride that you take in yourself to realize like, I am showing up for my family in this way, and it's meaningful. They feel it, I feel it. And there's this sense of pride versus a sense of shame that I had found all too familiar, for beating myself for not doing those things or not showing up in that way, versus the opposite story that I started to tell myself was that I was showing up for my family. And I think that just builds on itself over time.
I would imagine it also has an impact on your success in business as well, because I mean, it's all tied in, right? Like, I mean, if we're feeling bad about ourselves and we're saying, you know, like feeling shame is such a powerful word, right? I mean, that's a super low vibrational frequency. I mean, when we feel shame, that's in the book, Letting Go, that I'm referring to, that's actually the lowest vibrational frequency. It's the one closest to death, is shame. Like shame is the crippler of people's life experience. So if you're feeling shame because you've been critiquing yourself and beating yourself up about your lack of presence, your lack of connection with your family, et cetera, of course it's going to have an impact on how you perform in your business. You're going to have a conflict going on within you, which is like, do I work more to chase the carrot of making more money and continue to feel like shit about myself? So there's that competing intention. Now what you've done is you've changed that to, you're actually proud of the role that you have as a father and husband. And I would imagine that it's had an impact on how you're showing up in your work life as well, as it relates to attracting people in, because you're in a good vibrational energy.
It's been something I've been playing with a lot for the last few months, and just thinking of this idea of attracting business. And, you know, some as it's also played a part in my meditation practice and stuff like that, where I'm thinking about business from a standpoint of attracting an energy in a different way than I ever have. And it's kind of fun. It's almost like a little bit of a game that I'm playing with myself right now, where I'm just like, where's my energy right now? And how is that either repelling or attracting what it is that I want in my life? And it's been cool seeing whether it's meditation or, you know, the good things that are happening in life and how that translates to, oh, there was a couple of referrals that just started trickling in right after we just had this great time with family, or I just had this awesome time with myself, and I'm feeling really loved and appreciated. And seeing how that translates to business is kind of a fun thing that I don't know that I have any more words for it than that, but I feel like it's something you can't touch, but you can recognize and start to put the dots together.
Yeah, I think that That's another good reminder for me. Like I think I've found most of my success at this point in time in my life by putting my back against the wall and working really hard to achieve it. Um, Especially in those moments of fear and crisis, I tend to like really hole up and hunker down and grind hard and shut out the outside world and forge ahead. And there in that there is no surrender. There's no trust. There's no belief in a higher power or a synchronicity to a higher vibrational frequency, whether you call it God, the universe, or whatever your choice of words is. And I've been playing with that a lot lately, which is, okay, does this need to be so hard? Do I need to shut everybody out and work really hard to get out of this hole that I'm in, whatever the hole is in my life? Or can I loosen the grip and surrender a little bit and watch it unfold organically? There's a great book. Did I ever tell you about the Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer?
No, you haven't.
So that's a cool book for you to maybe read. I just finished reading it for the second time. Michael Singer wrote a book called The Untethered Soul, which is like a international bestseller. And his first book, The Surrender Experiment, is basically a life story. When he was, I think, 18 was when he chose to live a life of surrender. And like every time he would come up against something that was kind of an unsavory experience in life, and he had plenty of them, like anything from thinking he was going to get arrested in Mexico to thinking that he had lost his land in upstate Florida, to squatters, and who had built a dwelling on it. He would want to like fight back. I mean, which was a natural human tendency. He just kept surrendering. Okay, I don't know why this is happening, but I'll go with it. Long story short is that he ends up, and he wanted to devote his life to meditation, and just wanted to check out of the outside world. But as he continued to surrender, that's not the path that he took. And he ended up being the CEO of a Fortune 100 company. And he went from being a beatnik meditator when he was 18 to being, and Tony Robbins has interviewed him a bunch of times. And I mean, he's a wonderful man. He's in his 70s now. But it's this notion of like, wait a minute, is the path always like me needing to have a plan and knowing exactly the next step? Or sometimes in that moment of challenge, can I just loosen my grip and say, okay, where's this going to take me? Let's just see. Let's go for an adventure here, and let's see where this adventure leads. And that's kind of what you did by going from being a banker to a broker. I mean, when you think about what we had talked about, you were looking at that through the lens initially that held you back from all those stories of fear of like, I'm going to lose control, and I'm going to have to buy my own computers and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, maybe, or can I look at this as just an adventure and see where it leads? And once you chose to dive in, look what's blossoming for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been really interesting because my tendency has been, and even I've been more aware of it in the last few weeks, is it gets toward the end of the day or the end of the week, and I realize, am I anxious about how much business that came in this week, or how many referrals, or how many leads, or what's going on? And my natural tendency has been, hey, I need to pick up the phone. I need to drive. I need to push. I need to go. And the lesson that I'm learning is the gift of this market is to untether myself from this feeling of anxiety and what it is that I need to push to make something happen. Because if I have to push to make something happen, and I'm all for work and commitment and me holding up my end of it, but I'm understanding a little bit of the lesson is my surrender to put the words that you used, my surrender, and kind of like how it is that I'm approaching and attracting, because that's something that can't be taken away from me when I'm coming from that place, versus what is the work that I need to do and what needs to be tied to my self effort versus what actually just wants to come into my life if I'll allow it.
Yeah. And that's really well articulated. And it's such a mind fuck, man. Like, because the thing is that when I look back on my life and I look at a lot of the things that I've accomplished them by, as Dr. Joe Dispenza refers to it, as matter trying to change matter, right? So like, from a scientific perspective. Like I am imposing my will and physically, executing on something to get what I want. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that has worked at times, but at what cost? Like what's the expense of the anxiety you're talking about and the stress and the lost hours of sleep versus have we ever looked at it from a perspective of, well, what would have happened if I would have just surrendered? Might I have gotten something even greater than what I had to work hard for? So a good test for me, and I'll play on this test with you, is if you think back over the course of your life to every significant relationship that you've ever had, the ones that are the ones that you're going to remember when you're about to die, like the people that really touched your life, did you have a plan to get those people into your life? Probably not.
No.
And I have a lot of relationships that I could draw from in this experiment. I go like, wow, like I would have never have known that person. I couldn't have ever conceived of knowing that person had I not surrendered and it just materialized. Like I remember this one, I don't tell this story very often because it sounds very, like look at me, and I don't really like to come from that place. But as you know, when I turned 40, I retired and I moved to Italy. And we had this plan, right? Like, and we planned it all out because I'm a great planner, as you know. And my travel agent found this villa for us to live in for a year. And we got there and we were there for about 3 weeks. And we were like, we got to get out. Like, I mean, it was just a miserable experience. Like it was, we were suffering. We were holding on. We were trying to make it work. It wasn't a clean place. There were tons of mosquitoes. It just wasn't, it felt lonely because it was way too big and it was just the four of us. And it was just like, we were struggling. And we finally just surrendered, and we were divinely led by a friend of mine in the States to a friend of his, who's now one of my best friends, whose mom knew of a place that we could move to. And it turned out to be the top floor of a castle that was built in the late 1400s, which is where we lived for the remainder of that year. I mean, it was like pinch yourself, like you couldn't believe how spectacular this place was. And it was less expensive than the place that we were suffering and struggling with. And from that location, which is an entirely different place in the city of Florence, we met a bunch of people that are still friends to this day who we would have never met had we executed on our plan. Like, so we had this plan to live near the school that the kids were going to go to. And we were fighting. It was clear that God was saying, look, this is not the right place for you. I mean, it couldn't have been more abundantly clear. Okay. And we were fighting it and suffering every day and fighting it and trying to make it work. And finally, when we let go, we were just led by happenstance, or maybe not happenstance, to an entirely different location that resulted in a magical experience that resulted in friends that I've had for 20 years who I never would have had. And my thick skull, bro, still gets tripped up on this stuff all the time and fights really hard and holds on really hard to try to control the outcome of things. Well, you know this from things that I was working on, right? When we were on. Absolutely. Like, I'm still working through that. Like, you know what? Rich left, and okay, he left, and that's it. Like, I'm going to let go. Maybe there's something more magical waiting. Maybe that wasn't the right path, but boy, it could be really hard. Our humanness can be so big. We want to have certainty of the outcome of things. I know I'm rambling here. I'd love for you to comment, because you can go deep.
This is so interesting that you're sharing this, because I think there's other areas and things that my wife and I are talking through and trying to make plans for. And what we keep coming back to, and I was just sharing with her the other night, is like, I feel like we almost just got to just go for it. And that there's going to be something that's unexpected that we can't see from our current viewpoint until we go. And then it'll just open up and be right there in front of us. But that's almost the adventure that I'm craving, is like, I almost don't want to know, even though everything inside me wants to know. It wants to have it all planned, wants to have the outcome clear. At the same time, I desire the adventure of what's uncertain. I I actually want to go find, this place and these people that I could not have met. And so it's kind of interesting to like have the depths of your heart long for something deeper than your mind even knows how to rationalize with, or, like you're saying we should go, even though we don't understand. Yes, because that's what your heart wants. So anyway, what you're describing sounds like something that, we may be experiencing in the next year of our life. And that'll be really fun.
Is that going to Idaho? Is that what you're thinking?
We're considering moving and seeing what that looks like, and having some plans in place that we really, it's like we've set the intention, hey, we're going to do this, and we have zero plans because everything we keep aiming at, nothing is really landed and nothing seems to be ideal. And it almost seems as like, bro, you just got to go and you'll figure it out. And it'll open up, and there's this lightness and this anticipation, even though like my brain goes like, you're going to move your family. You don't know what it's going to look like. Yep. And so I don't know. I'm excited for that adventure.
First of all, it's really cool that you guys are, it's really cool that you've identified the fact that you have this duality, this competing intention within yourself. The ego wants to know with certainty that everything's going to be okay. But your heart, you identified your heart's being called to an adventure. Your heart's just like, I want to go, let's just go play here and just see what unfolds, what magic is before us. And yeah, it can be really, really tricky. I played around with that school a bit, like as a part of one of the projects that I did in school. One day I decided, I put the day in my calendar and I said, I'm going to pack a bag and I'm going to go to the airport. I don't know if I ever told you this before. And
no, I haven't heard this.
The airport, and I'm going to look at the departure board and I'm going to pick a place and I'm just going to go there. And I
love it.
Tell her, and I said, give me a ticket to Denver, because I was thinking, well, the Lakers are in. Now I watched myself for 2 weeks prior to thinking, where should I go? Should I go to Seattle? Should I go to San Francisco? Where should I go for the weekend? And I would stop myself every time saying, stop. I don't need you to plan this out. You're defeating the purpose of this experience. This is supposed to just be like this divine unfolding, right? So I fell into the trap. I'm like, well, the Lakers are in Denver. I can go catch the Laker game tonight. There I am planning again. Go to the counter, ask the lady for a ticket to Denver. She goes, that we just sold our last seat. Oh, wow. That's not a coincidence.
Wow.
You're going to have to pick another place. And I said, I have no idea where I should go. Where should I go? She was like looking at me like, what? I said, pick a place. And she goes, Albuquerque. I'm like, great. I'll take a ticket to Albuquerque. So Albuquerque, I rented a car. And then I went and drove, and I ended up in Santa Fe, and I spent 2 nights there, and I had an amazing experience, man. Like, it was such an incredible weekend of just letting everything just unfold. But I kept catching myself trying to plan, where should I have dinner, and blah, blah, blah. Stop. It's really important work to do those, to be willing to step into the unknown and be called to the adventure.
I love how you're describing that. It gives me a greater level of confidence in what it is that I felt in my heart, and being able to articulate that's not only what I long for and what I desire, but just seeing the separation of like the duality, as you put it, between your thought and your thought process, your mind, your ego, and then your heart, and having that, when you can see it, that's when you can actually step into the life that you are, that is made for you, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah. So is it Idaho that you're thinking of, or is there somewhere else?
California is where at the top.
You want to live there?
Well, we're thinking northern California.
In Southern California, if you'd like to live there.
You know what? That's a beautiful home. Not sure it would be very ideal for our 4 boys. But no, Northern California, where Petey lives, is kind of where we're considering.
Wow. Okay. So actually in Redding?
Yep. In Redding.
Oh, wait, but you guys just went there on vacation, so you loved it when you were there, I assume.
Yeah, we did enjoy it, and I actually have family that's there, and family that's my brother, who I'm closest with, out of all of our siblings. Him and his wife are expecting a baby any day now, so having their first baby and stuff like that, they're have some of those ties there that are definitely kind of tugging on our heartstrings there a little bit too.
That's fantastic. That would be like really cool for you to you have some built-in community going in right away, and work-wise, you would be able to work from there no problem.
Yeah, I think the other part that makes it a little bit attractive is same time zone and things like that. So and they have a flight that comes straight from Reading back to Seattle, and so for keeping my current business relationships and business working, that would be pretty easy at the same time.
Awesome. Last question for you. I got to take you way back because you're so old. If you could talk to the 18-year-old Justice Roberts right now as the 31-year-old Justice Roberts and have a conversation with him about life, about business, about any topic you want, what advice would the 31-year-old Justice Roberts give to the 18-year-old Justice Roberts as he's about to embark upon being a man?
I think specifically, I would say have fun. Don't stress and don't work so hard. I think that's the theme that I feel like of lessons that I'm learning in my current life. But I did an experiment with my wife, and she walked me through an experience where I met my 40-year-old self about a year ago. And there was just this soft gaze in my 40-year-old self's eyes, and was like, not only is it so good and so fun what's ahead of you, but it is like, it's everything that you ever desired. So like, enjoy the ride. And so from my current viewpoint back to my 18-year-old self, I feel like I would say something similar. My eye gaze is probably not quite as soft as it would be at age 40. And I still have some lessons that I'm learning and some anxiety that I'm letting go of, but realizing that there's so much more enjoyment in life. There's so much more fulfillment when I'll let go, when I'll surrender. And so that's what I tell myself.
So I want to tie all this together with the beginning to your answer. So I have a question. You're on pace to fund 60 million this year. And did you fund last year?
I funded 40 million last year.
Okay. So try this on, everybody. He funded 40 million in 2023. He's on pace to fund 60 million in 2024. And the difference isn't just that he's funding 20 million more. The difference is that in 2024, he surrendered more, connected more with his family, got home earlier, played his guitar more, and loosened the grip on having to work so hard. And his business went up. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. And it might be a great lesson for all of us, me included. I'm sure that when Liz listens to this episode, Justice, she's going to look at me and go, you ought to have Justice as your fucking coach. Okay.
I love it.
Because it's definitely something that I need to remind myself of, because I come from that fear-based place sometimes too, like I said. So, man, thank you so much for a beautiful conversation. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple of months. Keep me posted on how things are going with Reading. That would be really cool. I would love to come visit you guys up there and go out on the lake and see Petey and Tabitha and his family. That'd be great.
That'd be so great. Well, thank you so much for your time. You're such a friend, and such a joy to be in your presence, and can't wait till we get to do that in person. But thanks so much for the time today. It was really cool hanging out.
You're welcome. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. I hope you enjoyed this latest episode of the 360 Experience. Have a great day.